Bend your legs and have them arranged as if you were sitting on a chair with your feet on an imaginary floor. Rest the left arm long in front of yourself, more or less shoulder height, palm to the ceiling. And now the palm of your right hand, put it on the floor somewhere in front of you so that your elbow and your forearm could lean against your lower chest and your abdomen. Great. So this is our setup starting position. Begin to roll your left, I was going to say your left head, that'd be interesting. Begin to roll your head backwards and return. I couldn't make up my mind whether one instruction or the other. Now do the thing that you have all learned to do so well over the last 2 years, and that is begin to inquire, how do you compose this intention? How is it enacted? I think you need a bit more than that. Now, because you can't, you're not getting visual feedback, you have to rely on bodily sensations. You have to go proprioceptive. All the sensations referring back to you. Now, please do remain lying on your side. Don't roll off your side. Pay attention. At what moment, rolling your head backwards, does the quality of the movement change? And by quality, I think what I'm really meaning is, when does the effort change? We can set up an imaginary effort continuum, where at one end of the continuum, effort is just slightly below zero. Sorry, above zero. It's just slightly above zero. If it was zero, you'd be dead. And at the other end of the continuum, you have 10. And 10, if you were exercising an effort of 10, you'd literally be destroying yourself, and then you'd be dead. So somewhere on that effort scale, that effort continuum, at what moment do you sense the effort ups, gets bigger? And what choice do you make at that moment? Do you choose to continue? Do you choose to stop? Do you choose to do something else? What do you choose? You could choose to ignore it and just continue. So you can see it's a multiple choice point. At that moment, when you feel the effort begin to increase, there's multiple choices. It's like not a fork in the road, it's a 4-point fork in the road, maybe even more. And that's why I said to you, use everything that you know from the last 2 years and apply it here. Now, the next time you return your head to that place that you remember it started from, stop there. And I could have done this at the beginning, but I forgot. Notice how much effort does it take to lie there? Remember the continuum, 1 to 10. How much effort does it take to lie there? And using that sense as a base, as a benchmark, start to move the right hip backwards and return. At what moment do you sense the effort gradient begin to rise? Actually, I think that's a nice way of saying it. Watching the gradient rise and fall. Now, your pelvis is certainly a larger mass than your head. Not only that, there are 2 other large masses attached to your pelvis called your legs. And then there's another mass attached to the other side, which is called your trunk. It's a completely different scenario than rolling your head backwards. However, nature is good. Nature has given you bigger muscles to cope with it. Wherever you see more mass in the body, there are bigger muscles. Bigger muscles to move bigger masses. Now, return your pelvis to the place that you remember it started from. Can you remember? Move your right shoulder backwards and return. Now, language being what it is, I have in my mind what I mean by shoulder. And you, when those vibrations hit your ear and enter into your nervous system, then you realize you have your idea what the word shoulder is. So you enact your idea. You're certainly not enacting my idea. Whatever shoulder means for you, move it backwards and then return. When you feel the effort gradient begin to change, begin to rise, notice what do you do at that moment? What choice do you make? Return your shoulder to that place that you remember you started from and rest completely. If you're comfortable resting on your side, by all means, rest on your side. So you just explored 3 different intentions, all with the same bodily configuration and all in the same relationship, all in the same orientation to the world and gravity and the people around you. So nothing changed. Those were pretty much constant. Let's see what happens when we make some different arrangements. Notice your return to lying on your left side again. Leave your left leg exactly as it is, lying on the floor. Don't shuffle it around, and put your right leg on the floor in front of your left leg. If the knee can rest on the floor, well and good. If not, suspend the leg. You won't be here for very long. Now, go through each of those 3 options. First, roll your head backwards and return, and notice what's different when the leg is configured, arranged in this way. Has there been a change regarding when does the effort start to increase? And that's enough. Stop. Now take the right hip, take your pelvis, roll it backwards and return. Notice the difference here. How this configuration of your right leg influences what you experience. Return your pelvis to the place you remember it started. And now the third, move the right shoulder backwards. Now notice I did not give you a constraint of what the right leg continues to do. I just gave you a starting position. And I've just realized that assumption right now. I didn't say whether you could move the leg or not move the leg. Now return your right leg, stop, bring the shoulder back. Return the right leg so that it's resting on top of the left. And let's change another parameter. Place the palm of your right hand on top of the palm of your left hand, which is on the floor in front of you. Keep both elbows completely straight. Do not bend either elbow, and leave the left hand on the floor. Begin to roll your head backwards and return. One more constraint. The right hand stays glued to the left hand. Notice how this new arrangement and this new set of what I'm going to call them task constraints, how this shapes your experience. Because it shapes your movement, certain things become more possible, other things become less possible. And if it shapes your movement, chances are it'll shape your experience. Now return the head, roll the pelvis backwards and return. notice the moment that the effort gradient increases. You can see that's the running theme in this lesson. It's not tracking your breathing, it's checking the effort gradient. And now finally, bring your pelvis back to its position. Now finally, take the right shoulder backwards. Notice how quickly does the effort gradient change? And what do you choose to do? Oh, left hand stays on the floor, you tricky person, you. Right hand stays on the left hand, you tricky person, you. You radical rule breakers. Right, bring the shoulder back to its place and rest in any fashion that suits you. So we started off with 3 different movements: head, pelvis, shoulder. Backwards, 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 and return. Then we went back to the same 3 movements, but changed one detail of the arrangement of your limb, the leg. And then we changed another detail, the arm. So now let's change a couple of more details, but with the same set of movements. Return to lying on your left-hand side. Leave your left leg where it is and place your right leg on the floor behind you. And in your own timing, go through each of those 3 options: rolling the head backwards, returning; rolling the pelvis backwards, returning; taking the shoulder backwards, returning. And go through that process. When do you feel your effort gradient rise, and what do you choose to do? And some of you will notice that this position of the leg favors the motion. Now stop. Return the right leg to its place. Where is its place? You know its place. Put it in its place. You, leg, back there. Now change something about, what will we change next? Yeah. Place the back of your right hand on your back at around the level of the where the lower back turns into the middle back. So not too close to the pelvis and not too close to the shoulder blade, somewhere in there. And now go through those 3 movements again: rolling the head backwards and returning, rolling the pelvis backwards and returning, taking the shoulder backwards and returning. Now, each of you are completely unique in your structure. This is something we don't necessarily acknowledge often enough. We are all absolutely unique in the way our human form presents itself in us. And because of that uniqueness, chances are each of your experiences in these different variations that we're doing is going to be unique to you. But there's something about our common form. I'm a human form, you're in a human form. There's something that also will be shared. Stop, pause again. Now, it's because we share that human form and a similar human nervous system that we can rely, you and I can rely on our history of experiences of doing awareness through movement to have some relevance to the person who's come for some assistance. We rely on that. Return to lying on your left side. Place your right hand on top of your left hand. Have your right knee in contact with your left knee. And now move the hand and the right knee, the right hand and the right knee simultaneously backwards. So not the knee before the hand, not the hand before the knee, together. And notice whether that constraint, that task constraint, because that's what it is, it's a task constraint, whether that immediately ups your effort. The fact that you are constrained. Where do you generate the force to move yourself? Is there something that you're doing with your left side against the floor or against the mat that you're lying on? Now stop. Move the right knee and the right hand backwards, but make sure that the right knee goes first, going backwards, and it moves forward to return first as well. I'll say that again. Make sure that it's the right knee that initiates the movement going backwards, and it also initiates the return. But at some point in time, both the knee and the hand are going backwards. Switch that over. Now, the left hand always initiates going backwards and always initiates the return. Now, please alternate between sometimes the knee initiating and sometimes the hand initiating for a very particular purpose, to notice how the different initiations influence, correlate with the movement of your pelvis, your shoulder, and your head, which is how we began. That's where I was directing your focus at the beginning. And now I'm once again asking you to inquire what happens to these places, these three places in yourself, when you are intentionally moving the periphery. Right. Let that be. Rest completely. Now let's find out whether or not those variations in limb position and periphery versus proximal initiation made any difference. Roll onto your left side. Lie like you were lying. Lie to me, lie to me. And now do the first movement that you did. Roll your head backwards and return and savor it. Is there anything different in your experience? Especially notice whether the effort gradient takes a little longer to rise before you feel the increase in effort. What might that be related to? Is there something different that you're doing throughout yourself? Now, leave that. Roll the pelvis backwards. Take the right hip backwards. What's different? Is there? Now, leave that. And now finally take the right shoulder backwards. And the same perceptual judgment. I'm going to be using that term a lot. I hope it doesn't have any negative connotations for you. I certainly don't say it with any negative connotations. You can use the word discernment if you want. That's fine. Yeah. Good. Now let that be. Make your way to standing and stand. stand in such a way that you know, you're not guessing, you know that you feel balanced and you know that everything is hunky-dory and safe. Take your right ear backwards, take your left ear forwards. Compared to the first time you did it this morning, what's different? Now do the opposite. Take the left ear backwards and the right ear forwards. What's different now between the sides? Because we can always ask about two differences, before and after left, right. Stop. Take the right hip backwards, the top of the right hip backwards, or the right hip joint, your choice. Take the left forwards. Is there anything different compared to what you experienced before lunch? Now stop. Take the left hip backwards, the right hip forwards. Is there anything different turning in this direction? And yes, I'm deliberately using the term turning now because that's what you're doing. Now finally, the shoulders. Take the distal end or the proximal end of the right shoulder backwards and left forwards. So this is and now stop, go to the other side. So this is a difference between now and then, right? And then the second difference, the one you're sensing now, is the difference between turning one way, turning the other way. Let that be and walk, please. Okay. Let's go into a 10-minute break. We'll come back, set up, and go into some functional integration, hands-on aspect practice. Hands-on aspect. Ah, you're good. Mad bastard.